So when I think of testimony, the word testimony means to tell the story that bears witness to something. And my testimony bears witness to the story of God. My whole life, God's hand has been on. Grew up in a home where I was taught to live every part of my life under the obedience of Christ, because of what he had done for us. And so ever since I was really young, I had a knowledge and an understanding of who God was. Probably the biggest moment in my life that I remember of just turning to Christ. I was 7 years old, and I was sitting and listening to a Christian worker who was at our church talking about the work she was doing in Africa. And I remember sitting there and hearing God say to me, "You're going to go there one day." And just telling my parents, and then being like, "All right, well then how do you have a relationship with Christ now? How do you start telling people about Christ now, about who he is now?" And so just my parents really pouring into me about who Christ was and how to share him with people. I had the opportunity when I was 17 to go to both Uganda and to Thailand, and just to live in those nations and see God's heart for those people. And it really opened my eyes to more than just the American church. And just God's vision for the world and wanting to join him in that. There are a couple of verses that God has really placed in my life recently, that I desire for my life to reflect as I go forward. And the first one is 1 Thessalonians 2:8, and it says, "So affectionately longing for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you had become dear to us." And that's been a heart cry of mine in college, because God's placed some people in my life who I would never have found, but God placed a desire in my life to meet them, and to start sharing him with them. And just has been teaching me how to impart my life to them. Not only the gospel of God, but my life, because they are dear to me. And so as I go forward in life, that's my desire, that I would be able to impart my life for the glory of God. Another verse that's been extremely important to me is Matthew 28:19 and 20, and it's, "Go therefore and preach the gospel to all nations, making disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey all the commandments of the law." And just how I'm not called to just be here, where I am, but every part of my life is to make disciples. And just, if I'm living every moment in the presence of God, how natural it is then to make disciples and to point them back to him. And so my testimony tonight is more about what God's been leading me to do, Um, and that is to simply walk out my life in a way that is broken at his feet, that I might be poured out for other people.